Hey guys, so for day 25 of Halloween nail designs, I am going to do the last and final nail for this Nightmare Before Christmas set that I'm doing. If you watched the Jack one, then you know that I originally wasn't going to do a whole set for this. I was just going to do the Jack nail, but then after I did the Jack nail, I was super happy with how it came out, so I decided to do a whole set. The second video was Sally, and now for the final video here, I am going to be doing Zero. I went back and forth between doing Zero and Oogie Boogie, and I decided to do Zero because I feel like he usually doesn't get painted for Nightmare Before Christmas sets. And the last Nightmare Before Christmas set that I did have Jack, Sally, Oogie Boogie, and Lock, Shock, and Barrel. And I didn't include Zero, so I decided to include him this time. Just like the other two nails, I started out by painting the nail with, I think this is Gravedigger from Nails by Dev. I did 2 coats of that, and I cured each coat for 60 seconds. Now I'm just going in with the sketching gel from Ball Pit to get my sketch down of Zero. So I'm just going in here and starting with his mouth. I felt like this would be the easiest and the best place to start for me. I was a little wrong on that. This starting with his mouth was a little tricky. His mouth just in general was a little tricky to do. I'm not even gonna lie, the whole thing was a little tricky because he's very like swoopy and swirly, and a lot of him was going off the nail, so I had to like paint it as if it was continuing off the nail, coming back onto the nail, and it was a little tricky to do all that and make sure that things were connected in the right spots and everything, and like making sure that the swirls and swoops were in the right spots that they needed to be. So he was a little tricky to get done, but he wasn't too bad. So I mentioned in the Jack one, like Jack took me 2.5 hours to do. I can't remember, and I also wasn't really like timing. So it was somewhere between like 2.5 hours to get him done. Sally only took me probably around like an hour and a half to do. And then Zero only took about an hour. And that's including like all of the curing that I was doing in between as well, not just the amount of time that it took me to get him all painted on. Like the painting took less than that, but because of all the curing and stuff like that, adds on time too. So, but overall, like doing the outline for Zero did not take very long at all. I did have to, like I said, it was a little tricky because of all like the different swoops and swirls and making sure things were in the right spot. That did take a little bit of extra time, but honestly, it really wasn't too bad. I got his outline done pretty quickly, and then the rest of the time was spent doing all of the like shading and everything to actually make him look how he looks on the Loungefly bag. Because if you didn't know, if this is the first one that you are watching from this little mini series, I am painting the characters off of my Nightmare Before Christmas Loungefly bag that I have. Um, so yeah, to make him look like how he looks on the bag, and getting all of the like light gray and the white and the black and all of that in the right spots and making sure that it's all done the correct way. It took a little extra time because, like I said in the other two videos, personally, for me, like gray, monochromatic color palettes are a little trickier for me than like a, multicolored palette is. Um, so it took me a little bit longer to get him done because of that. But overall, it really wasn't that difficult. And it did take me less time to do him compared to the other two. One, because he had the least amount of details compared to Jack and Sally. And two, because I had now done Jack and Sally and I had the hang of things and was used to doing this kind of art and like this, using this color palette. So it was a little bit easier when it came to doing him. So it helped out to get him done pretty quickly. So this is really the part right here where I wasn't struggling so much, but it was taking me a little bit longer to do because I had to make sure his ears were swooping the right way, and then his tail also comes up and swoops around as well, and I had to make sure that they were all in the right spots, and like you could tell what went where and like what was what, instead of it all just being a big swirly blob up there. You can kind of see me taking my time and like stopping every now and then to try and figure out where to lay things out. I did have the bag there next to me so I could go back and forth and look at it for my reference and make sure that it was all, set up the way it needed to be. And for my sketches, whenever I do character art like this, I don't flash cure in between, just in case I do mess up and I need to fix something. It's easier for me to just wipe it off and fix it rather than having to potentially buff it off or file it off and then potentially messing up the base of the nail. So everything does remain uncured until I'm finished. Also, you can see some of my lines are a little wonky. They're thicker in some spots, thinner in some spots. I don't really worry about that too much on this initial sketch here because that can all get covered up and fixed when I go in and do like add on all of the colors and do the outlining and everything. So I'm not too concerned about it. I do want to make sure it's good enough to where I'm able to easily like tell what's what and what needs to like be painted certain colors and whatever. But I'm not like really focusing on the weight of the lines and like making sure that they're completely, straight and all of that. Because like I said, it all gets covered up in the end. Which is why I really like this sketching gel, because you can't see it through any of the colors. It's super light. It's a like jelly brown color, and it gets covered up really easily. In my personal opinion, it gets covered way more easily than even a jelly black, which you can use a jelly black if you want, or like you can mix up your own jelly black. You could even just use like straight black, but like I said, black does tend to show through certain colors that you're using. Even if it is a jelly black, it can show through certain colors, especially lighter colors, just because it is so dark and pigmented. Whereas this jelly brown color here, it pretty much gets covered up by every color. I've never had an issue where it didn't get covered by even the lighter colors. So I really do like this, and I do really recommend it if you're doing like character art or portraits or something, or even if you just need a sketch to like do any kind of nail art, like maybe you're using it to lay out, like if you're doing some sort of abstract art, or just kind of mapping out your design and you need something that's going to be able to be covered easily. I do recommend this product right here. And you can also use it as a jelly brown color. Like if you need a nail painted a jelly brown, you can use it for that as well. Um, and it's a really pretty color too on its own. Anyhow, there you saw I did cut down his nose a little bit and made it just a teensy bit shorter than what it should be, just so I could fit his little pumpkin on the nail. I mean, I didn't get the entire pumpkin, but I did want it to at least be partially on the nail, because I feel like that is such an iconic part of Zero that I just had to have it on there. And then, like I said, going back to making, like, keeping everything wet and not curing anything, his eyes were kind of wonky and weren't quite in the right position. So thankfully, because I hadn't cured anything, I was able to easily just wipe those off and then repaint them on, and I didn't have to worry about, buffing them off or anything and like messing up the gray base there underneath. I will say though, you do have to be careful to make sure you're not wiping off all of your other lines if you're keeping everything uncured while you do it, which isn't too difficult to do. Just make sure that your brush isn't flooded with alcohol. Just kind of have it like damp, not like soaking wet, but damp, and then just swipe it off and you should be good to go. And then, yeah, just make sure you're not wiping off the other lines. And then once I got that all done, I did go ahead and cure for a full 60 seconds. Now I'm just using the same colors that I used for Jack and Sally, the white and the black from Ball Pit. And then I also had Gravedigger and Foggy Mist from Nails by Dev. And just going in and doing all the like highlighting and shading and everything that needed to be done. So I started out with the lighter gray, which I think is Foggy Mist, from Nails by Dev. I can't remember if Foggy Mist is the lighter one or if Gravedigger is the lighter one, but those are the two grays that I used for this. One's lighter, one's darker. You can see. I don't know exactly which is which, but I just went through and did all of the lighter parts first. Again, just going back and forth, referencing the bag, making sure that these lighter parts are in the right parts or in the right spots, and are the thickness that they need to be, and blend it out how they need to be. And just like the other two nails, keeping that like, because on the bag it kind of looks like a pencil drawing, and you can see like all the little pencil lines and whatever. I was trying to keep that in there, so when I needed to, I would just kind of like feather out the edges to keep that like pencil stroke look. And then when I needed to, in some of the spots that were lighter, I would go in with the white right on top of that light gray as it was still wet, and just went in and lightened up some spots. And then once I got that all done, I did go ahead and cure for 60 seconds. I will say, as I was painting Zero, like when I was doing the sketch of him, I'm sitting here looking at this as I'm sketching him out. I'm like, this just does not look right. And I was starting to second guess myself and start questioning if I should have actually done zero instead of Oogie Boogie. I was like, I should just stop this right now before I get too far into it and just go ahead and do Oogie Boogie. But at the same time, I really wanted Zero because I had never painted Zero before, and I love him. He's so cute, and I don't know, I just thought he needed some recognition because, like I said, he does get painted sometimes, but like, he's not the one most people are painting. Like, everyone always does. Obviously, everyone always does Jack. Sally gets painted a lot as well. And Oogie Boogie. I think Oogie Boogie and Jack are the two that get painted the most. And then Sally. And then you do get some people doing Lock, Shock, and Barrel. And then, yeah, I just feel like Zero doesn't get painted as much. He does get painted sometimes, like I said, but I don't feel like I see him as much as I see the others. So I really did want to do him, but like I said, I did not have faith that he was going to turn out right. I don't know what it was. Like, for some reason, he just was not looking right. Like, when I was doing Jack and Sally, there were times where I was like, I don't know how this is going to end up looking and if it's going to end up looking right. But for the most part, I was pretty confident with painting them and thinking that they were going to turn out pretty decent, and I felt like I was going to be happy with the end result. But with Zero, I had zero confidence in how this was going to turn out. And the more I did, the more I was like, yeah, no, this is not going to look right once I'm done. Like, this is going to look like a hot mess, and I'm going to have wasted all this time. Um, like I said, I don't know why I was feeling like that and why that was like in my head the entire time I was doing this. He just, for some reason, was just not looking right to me. Like, everything about him was looking off and looking wrong, but I just kept with it and hoping that it would all come together in the end. I know I've mentioned before, you know, people will say trust the process. I never trust the process. um I'm always just like, it looks bad now. It's probably going to end up looking bad in the end, but we're going to keep going with it and following through to see, you know, does it continue looking bad, or does it, come together in the end? Like, I never trust the process, even though that's like the thing. Everyone is always like, trust the process, trust the process. I do not. I never trust the process. But like I said, I follow through unless it's obvious that it's not working and it's not going to come together in the end. I will follow through until the end to see how it looks in the end. But like I said, there are some times where I'll be part of the way through of doing something and I'm like, yeah, no, this just is not working and it's not gonna work. So I scrap it and either retry it or do something completely different. But Zero was one that I was going to see through to the end and hope that it all came together. Mainly because I, saw the process of Jack and Sally and how they came together, and like, there were some sketchy parts where I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna look. And once I got that final outline on of them, like, it all just, that final outline brought them all together and really, like, sealed the deal and made them look right. So I was hoping that that would be the same here with Zero. But yeah, I was not confident with Zero at all. So yeah, it was a little upsetting to be feeling like that. When you're doing something and then you're just sitting there the whole time like, this is not working out, this is not going to plan. um which does happen. I mean, we're human. um Sometimes we're confident in our abilities, sometimes we're not, and that's okay. That's all part of, being a human, and like creating art and everything. It doesn't always come out how you want it to come out, or it doesn't always go the way as you wanted it to go. But like I said, I think it was in the Sally one, even if things don't go as planned, like, it's all, you can just brush it off to being practice for the next time you do it, So every time you sit down to do your art, whether it goes to plan or not, you can always just say, oh, well, this was practice for the next time. Even if it does go to plan, like, it still can be practice for the next time, because, the next time it's going to be better than the previous time because you've already done it before. So, yeah, that's my little motivational speech, I guess, for this. Um, But yeah, after I got all those light parts done, I went in with the black and did all of the black parts and the shadowing and all of that. Did the same thing that I did with the lighter parts, where I wanted to kind of keep that like pencil sketch look going, and like feathered it out, and like the parts that it needed to be feathered out, like on the edges of some of the black spots. Like right here, I think, is where I did some little feathering. Also on the ear, to like kind of make it look blended into the darker gray and whatever. And then once I got that all done, I did go ahead and cure that for 60 seconds. Now I'm just going in with the Emo Black liner gel and outlining everything. Even the parts that were black, like his eyes and his mouth and that little black part there on his body, I did outline as well. It just helps to define. Actually, I don't know if I outlined that part on his body because I don't think it needed it. But like his mouth and his eyes, I did outline. It just kind of helps to define those areas. Okay, I think I did outline it. It looks like I did. Or I was adding some more little, like, wrinkled lines that were on there to give it more of that, like, flowy ghost look. I don't know. But even if something is black, I do still outline it if it needs to be outlined, because it just, like I said, it makes it more defined and clean and crisp. And I do use a 12mm liner brush to do the outlining, just like stated in the previous videos. It's just easier. It helps to absorb any of that shakiness that you may be experiencing. Another way to prevent the shakiness in your hand, if you do experience that, is anchoring your pinky. As you can see, you see that in pretty much every video that I do. No matter what I'm doing, I always have my pinky anchored. I usually have it set on my other hand, on one of my fingers, or on the nail stand that I'm using, just so I can have, like, a more steady hand. I've mentioned this before, I will also breathe through my mouth instead of breathing through my nose. I had a bus driver tell me that that helps, and I tried it out and it worked well, and ever since then I've always breathed. Why does that sound wrong? I always breathed through my mouth. Breathed. That doesn't sound right. Anyhow, I always breathe through my mouth whenever I'm painting, especially when I'm doing outlining, just to help prevent any shakiness. Why that works, I don't know. How it works, I don't know. Is it like a placebo effect or something, and it's like all in my mind, and I'm like tricking myself into it working? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if there's any evidence to prove that it actually does work or not, but from my experience, it does work. So, you can try some things to see if any of that helps with the shakiness. So yeah, just go through and outline everything and add in any other tiny little details that may need to be added in that I might have missed with the black, like some of those tiny little creases and wrinkles and stuff. And before I got him outlined, I'm like, he looks very Dr. Seuss coded. Like, he looks like a Dr. Seuss character and not a Tim Burton character. But then once I got him outlined, I'm like, okay, he looks very Tim Burton-esque, and like, he looks like he was drawn by Tim Burton and not Dr. Seuss. Like, it's so weird how, like, an outline can really change the way something looks. But yeah, I will say, once I started outlining him, I saw him coming together, and I wasn't feeling so bad anymore. I'm like, okay, he looks pretty decent. He looks how he looks on the bag, and I was happy with him after I started outlining him and seeing that outline just bring him together. So I was really happy at that point, and I wasn't like, great, I just wasted all this time, because up until I started outlining, I was like, I don't know, I feel like I just wasted, an hour doing all this just for him to look stupid. But he doesn't look stupid, he looks cute, and I really love him. And then, like I said earlier, I did finish the set So I did do the pinky and the thumbnail as well. I didn't film them though because these videos were already long. I mean, that video was close to an hour and a half long. I want to say Sally was a little over an hour. Zero here is almost like 45 minutes long. So these videos were long, and like if I would have included those other two nails in with this video, this would have probably made it be as long as somewhere in between the length of the Jack video and the Sally video. And I was already questioning, if I wanted them to be that long and like have everything in real time, or if I wanted to just speed everything up. And I did decide ultimately, now, I did decide to leave everything in real time just to see how it would go, on the channel, and see if this would be something that you guys were interested in seeing every now and then, like a in real time, in-depth kind of character art, more like a tutorial style video rather than a watch me work style video. So this was all just kind of like a little test to see how well these go. But like I said, I didn't want this to be super long, and I also really just didn't feel like filming those two nails because I did Jack, and then I immediately did Sally, then I immediately did Zero. So I had been sitting at the desk already for several hours, and it always takes twice as long to film versus just painting, like not filming, because you gotta worry about being in frame and making sure that things are focused and everything, which I don't always pay attention to all that, and sometimes stuff is out of focus, I'll be out of frame, but like that is stuff you have to focus on and worry about whenever you're filming, and making sure that you can actually see what I'm doing and all of that. So I did finish those two nails off camera. I just painted them that same gray base color, and then I just did some flames because there's flames on the bag. It's like a dark gray, a light gray, I think a black. I don't really remember. You'll see them in the end, because they are in the finishing shots. I just didn't show myself painting them. I do have other videos if you want to know how I do flames. Actually, I did the flames on this one a little bit differently than how I usually do flames, because I was testing something out to see how they would look if I did it a different way, which I'm really happy with how they turned out. But if you are curious to know how I usually do flames, I do have a couple videos where I do flames somewhere on my channel if you want to know one way to do flames, because there's several different ways to do flames. And like I said, I tested out a different way of doing flames for this set, and I do really like how they came out this way, so I'll probably end up doing something that involves flames in the near future, so I can show you guys how I did them, the way I did them for this set. But anyhow, after I got everything done, I went ahead and top coated it with the Nails by Dev matte top coat, which I absolutely love this top coat because I don't have to worry about wiping the nail off before applying it, and I don't have to worry about any smudging or smearing. As you can see, it's not dragging any polish across the nail, so my nail art still looks as good as it did once I finally cured it. And then the Nails by Dev matte top coat is a wipe off top coat, so you do have to take some alcohol and wipe that off to remove that sticky layer and to get the matte effect. And once I finish wiping them off, you'll see the finished result right here. I'm super happy with how he came out. Like I said, I was doubting it at first, and I was not confident that he was going to end up looking right in the end. But in the end, he did end up looking right, and I'm super happy with how he came out. He is super cute, and I just love him, and he fits in so well with the other two that I did, Jack and Sally. Like, he definitely fits the vibes. He matches them really well, and he looks like how he does on the bag. Overall, I'm super happy with how all three of them have come out. Here's before I did the two last nails, but all three of them, Jack, Sally, and Zero, all together next to each other, they all came out so well, and I am super happy with all three of them. I still think Jack is the best out of all of them, and he ended up being the best um, character art that I've ever done, and I'm still super super happy about him. But I am super happy with how not Jack, Sally and Zero came out as well. They're also some of the best characters that I have done, and I'm super happy with them. And all together, all three of them look so good. And then seeing the entire set with the flame nails as well, it just really pulled it all together, and I am happy that I ended up doing an entire set for them, even though I originally said I wasn't going to and I was just going to do Jack. But this entire set looks so cool, and I love how it came out, and I'm super super happy with it. This is hands down my favorite set that I have done for the Halloween season. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.